After a decade of making superhero movies, Marvel used the lessons it learned along the way and started creating shows like Miss Marvel and WandaVision that are just as good as most MCU movies. They've got their own signature blend of Marvel humor, action sequences, and drama. In this video, we'll be ranking every Marvel Cinematic Universe TV show. So let's dig in. First up, it's Helstrom. Helstrom, released in 2020, was the last live-action MCU show to be released on Hulu before Disney Plus came and changed the game for everyone involved. The show was promptly canceled after only one season, mostly because it was practically unwatchable. Helstrom is a bizarre take on paranormal tropes, with a bare connection to the comic book characters the entire show is supposed to be based on. The plot follows the story of a pair of siblings with demonic blood, giving them superpowers, but the problem is that none of these characters are even remotely likable. Even the special effects are nothing special. While one would think that superheroes and spooky stuff would make for a great combination, Helstrom just didn't deliver on any of that. Up next, Inhumans. Inhumans was originally supposed to be an MCU movie with its own sub-franchise, but it clearly suffered from the direction the show wanted to focus on. The idea of the show revolves around a separate society of superfolk, hidden from the rest of the world, who live their lives as per their own laws. But what good are superheroes when they have no connection to human society? It makes them unrelatable and uninteresting. A bunch of superheroes living together? Okay, cool, what about it? The story just doesn't make us interested enough to care. And if it isn't about real people interacting with superheroes, is there really a plot to consider? Inhumans fails to grab the viewer's attention solely because there's not enough at stake. Now it's Cloak and Dagger. Cloak and Dagger actually had a strong start thanks to the great chemistry between Tandy Bowen, played by Olivia Holt, and Tyrone Johnson, played by Aubrey Joseph, aka Cloak and Dagger. Watching these teenagers trying to understand their newly given powers and the incidents that sparked them was almost wholesome. Since the writing room was honing on minor Marvel characters, they didn't have the pressure of adhering to the comics and were free to create something wonderfully romantic while also talking about some more serious themes like police brutality, corporate greed, and addiction. Heavy stuff. Moving on to The Punisher. John Bernthal as the fierce and grumpy Frank Castle is Daredevil Season 2's highlight of the show, and the subsequent first season of The Punisher couldn't have told a better story in the MCU. The character's legacy may be problematic, but showrunner Steve Lightfoot made sure to keep the series from following your run-of-the-mill revenge fantasy plot, and instead focus on ethical hacking, examining the after effects of PTSD from and surrounding debate around the military-industrial complex. The show also features a fantastic supporting cast with Ben Barnes as Castle's sidekick Jigsaw and Eben Moss-Backrack as Microchip, which gives the series some much-needed lightheartedness. The second season, though, failed to impress, and Micro's absence was deeply felt. Even the plot felt like a rehashed version of Season 1 storyline with little to say. Let's talk about Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. ABC Network show Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. was the one show most closely tied to the MCU before Disney Plus was launched. Mysteriously brought back to life after Loki kills him in the Avengers, Bill Coulson is then tasked with leading a bunch of agents who are investigating the likes of cyborgs and Asgardians. The first season was written with a revelation that was made in Captain America: The Winter Soldier, when S.H.I.E.L.D. is said to be infiltrated by Hydra. That gave the story a great twist since it showed where the loyalties of several characters lay. All in all, Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. actually delivers and is one of the top Marvel shows, really digging into the comic book tropes with a heavy dash of meta humor. Next, we have WandaVision. The show starts with Wanda being in complete denial and having created her own reality in the cheery world of the 50s to 70s sitcom, complete with the recreation of her dead husband, Vision. From bosses coming over to dinner and nosy neighbors to suddenly going into labor, WandaVision takes its time to reveal itself as a show about navigating loss and grief. The ability to explore her character while being downright weird is what made the show truly stand out. The first 3 episodes will have you scratching your head, wondering what's going on, but as the viewer progresses, Wanda is seen navigating her own range of emotions, from rage and guilt to confusion and selfishness. The series is intentionally wrapped up with a few loose ends to make room for future movies, but definitely is worth a watch. Now it's What If. What If feels like the most underrated MCU show, and if you haven't given this one a watch yet, you're definitely missing out. The 9-episode show starts out in a pretty straightforward manner, where Peggy Carter was at the receiving end of the super soldier treatment instead of the usual Steve Rogers, but the rest of the events play out pretty much as is. The following episodes then take a much darker and more violent turn than any of the MCU multiverse movies could ever dream of doing, and actually makes room to explore the characters as well. For instance, Black Panther's T'Challa is off to space, and Thor decides to throw a party for the entire world. The show is cool and exciting in many different ways, but it also pays attention to the minute details. Let's talk about Miss Marvel. In a world where we are bombarded by superhero origins, Miss Marvel managed to make her origin story an absolute treat to watch. There are many different things that we'd like to highlight in the show, from the super cool into the Spider-Verse-like visual feel of the show to the fact that Kamala Khan really felt like your average brown kid with a life full of relatable issues. And credit credit must be given where credit's due, because Iman Vellani is the absolute star of Miss Marvel. Her portrayal of Kamala Khan felt alive and energetic, whether it's her wonder at discovering her own powers or her shyness with developing a high school crush, even if the show is figuring out how to fully rope in her cultural identity or what the villains will look like. We're more than happy to let the show take its time. With 6 episodes in, our only criticism is that we need more episodes, and we need them now. Moving on to Agent Carter. While WandaVision deals with the concept of an extremely powerful superhero mourning the loss of the love of her life, Agent Carter reverses the same formula and explores the same concept of loss, but steeping it in the lack of power instead. After we see the events of Captain America, the Winter Soldier unfold, Captain America's girl Peggy Carter is mourning his apparent death, but also trying to continue the role of the hero in an age that wants nothing to do with female heroes. It definitely mimics the real-life shift that moved women into roles traditionally observed by men during World War II. The men were off fighting, but sidelined them the minute their soldiers came home. The show deals with the sexism and condescension that Peggy faces at her job at the Strategic Scientific Reserve. Now let's talk about Daredevil. Daredevil was the first Netflix MCU show, and it established a tone that was unlike any other superhero story we'd seen before. It was dark and gritty, and made exceptionally well with its secret identities and stellar fight sequences. The single-take hallway fight scene clearly proves that Marvel doesn't need these movie budgets to create something epic, and the battle between Daredevil and Bullseye, which weaponized every object found in that newsroom, was crafted to perfection. Cox's portrayal as Daredevil is inherently believable, as he is driven by a relatable mix of anger and guilt, as he tries to make the world a better place, as a superhero vigilante and a lawyer. The show is both ambitious and creative, a rare combination, and the finale proves to be a satisfying end to a chapter of superhero TV. Finally, we have Loki. After all the intense superhero shows, the lightheartedness of Loki is a welcome sight in the mix. The 45-minute episodes fly by seamlessly, even though they might not deliver on the jokes as much as you'd like. The gaps in the writing are easily covered by the stellar performances of the cast, and Tom Hiddleston is one of the best things to happen to the MCU. He's got an expressive, energetic presence that makes this show stand out from the rest, no matter what. Loki is creative and oftentimes a hell of a lot of fun, as Season 1 creates room to really develop the character and explore his emotions. That's a wrap for this video. Do you have any thoughts about these Marvel TV shows? Let us know in the comments below. Make sure to give this video a thumbs up and subscribe to our channel for more videos like this. See you in the next one.